Welcome to the Six Steel City Rings podcast. I am Ray Whiting. With me, I have Leanne Lohman, Zach Franciscus, and Bob Quinn. Guys, how are you all doing today?
Victory Monday can't be too bad.
Yes.
1-0.
And I am going to start a new trend. Whenever we have a Steeler victory, I'm going to have a shot glass. I don't have one. I don't have mine with me right now, but I'll have one for the next victory.
All right.
Let's get started. Do a recap of Game 1 yesterday with the Steelers beating the Falcons. But before we go into it, I'm going to turn it over to Leanne. Leanne, take it away.
We have just a couple of news items that we kind of want to talk about before we get into covering yesterday's game. As you all certainly know by now, the Steelers beat the Falcons 18-10 in their season opener in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The Steelers were the 4-point underdogs in that game, so the win is very exciting, especially considering all the turmoil that was going on before the game about who would be the Steelers' starting quarterback. Russell Wilson with his calf injury, would he make it? It was just before the game. It was announced that Justin Fields was going to get the go-ahead. While the Steelers were never able to find the end zone during that game, Chris Boswell managed to put up 6 field goals and get us a victory. However, there were some very questionable play calling during the game, which we'll talk about more during the recap. But that play calling definitely led to Cameron Johnston, the Steelers punter, getting, at least in part, to him getting injured. There was some question of exactly what went on with that punt. It also negated 2 turnovers by TJ Watt that were brought back. On top of those items, the Steelers have re-signed safety Terrell Edmunds, brought him back to the team, which is kind of an interesting move. We can talk about it a little bit more, considering we didn't really have a safety get hurt. But Edmunds was a Steelers first-round draft pick in 2018. He was with the team till 2022 when he left for greener pastures, and he's been on the practice squad and is now in Jacksonville, is now returning back to us. The Steelers did sign a replacement punter, Corliss Waitman, who was with the Steelers from 2020 to 2021. Prior to us, he was with the Denver Broncos, so he'll be joining the revenge bandwagon to head into Denver this week. So, guys, what did you all think about the game yesterday?
Well, it was you said it exactly right, because yesterday I'm so glad I'm not officially a part of the NFL, because I get fined so hard, because the Steelers beat 2 opponents yesterday. We beat the Falcons and we beat the refs. And I don't like the referees, but I don't often say that, because I know it's always like a cliche and everyone, oh my God, it was awful. It was and the worst thing is, we talked about it a little bit in prep, it was inconsistent. If you're going to call one thing on them, call it on it. But it was just so bad. And what kind of affirmed for me that it really was as bad as I thought, it takes a lot to get TJ Watt that angry. I mean, it takes a lot to get TJ Watt that angry, and he was apoplectic. And I think a little bit of that is, and we'll talk about it more in depth later, but a little bit of that is TJ Watt knows the potential on this team, and he can feel a little bit of what the defense has, and getting stuff taken away from him, he knows is going to affect it, and that cannot happen. So I'm hoping everyone, but God, what a badly repped game.
Yeah, I totally concur. Actually, to be honest with you, like Cameron Johnston, when he got hurt, that actually might have been the least egregious call they missed. Yeah. I mean, they in the replay in the booth, they were talking about it that, okay, Greg Olsen made the point when they were talking to the official, the supervisor of officials, that, hey, yes, there was holding before. It wasn't necessarily that he was blocked into him, but they held him. So it was hard to, at best it would have been offsetting penalties. And I know Leanne can talk more about this. It doesn't matter because he got hurt. He's out for the year. He was a huge weapon for us. But, I mean, some of the stuff, especially with the George Pickens calls, was just beyond bizarre. I mean, pass interference penalty, okay, maybe ticky-tack, you can call that. But, they were critical in the broadcast. Virtually everybody else has been critical. The phantom down by contact. I was listening to Andrew Filipponi on the PM team with Pony and Mueller earlier. Apparently, and it's true, you can't challenge that play. And even if you think, okay, yes, nobody touched him, it's obvious nobody touched him, you can't challenge when they call down by contact. So it's a matter of, and bottom line is, okay, he got up and he ran, he wasn't touched. He gained 3 more yards. So we lost 3 yards on the call. So, yes, was it bad? Does it make the NFL look bad? Not that I wonder if they really care that their officiating is bad, but yeah, it was pretty ugly. I mean, Leanne, I know you posted on Twitter about the or X, whatever you want to call it, on about the Cameron Johnston injury and how that should have led to something.
Yeah.
And you got some interesting reactions.
I did. And look, I'm not mad about it. When I post stuff like that, I want people to push back. Do you know what I mean? I think there's always room to learn and grow as a fan. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not an officiating expert by any means. So initially watching that, I felt really frustrated that Johnston had gotten injured. I think he's the best punter we've had in like 40 years. And I don't think that that's an overstatement. And so, it was really concerning to see him go down. I had a lot of people push back on it and say that really Miles Killebrew had kind of blocked the guy from Atlanta into him, that rolled on his leg and that caused the injury. And so therefore there wasn't really a flag to be thrown. I frankly think that if it had happened to any other team with any other officiating crew and somebody ran into the punter, it would have been called. I just don't buy it. I think there's plenty of times we see hits on the punter and it's somebody pushed him into him. The guy pulled up short and tried to stop and brushed one, hair on his leg as he went past and they call it. So I don't know. I feel like with the game, I think it's hard to feel justified in that or feel vindicated or validated in that when you see so many other things being called so egregiously wrong. I said to you guys before we started the show that I really went into this season with this mindset that I was not going to be that person that blames the refs all year, because I feel like that's my zone during the season. I definitely believe all the conspiracy theories. I believe the Steelers get mistreated by the refs. I buy into all of that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to do that this year. And then this game comes on. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, this is outrageous. I'm like, is anybody else mad? I get on Twitter and I see all the big Pittsburgh reporters are saying the same thing, right? Baldo, Chris Carter, all these guys are talking about how bad the officiating was, and at least made me feel validated in my feelings. I think, we had 2 awesome Angels ask us what was the worst call. And I think, there were so many really bad ones, but that George Pickens call, I mean, I struggle to even understand it. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to talk about some other things being a little bit ticky-tacky, it looked like he had his arms up for the ball. Do you know what I mean? And then next thing you know, they're throwing a flag on him. I mean, there was that natural kind of like jostling for separation that players do, but it didn't seem to me like Pickens did like a big shove off or a push or anything to warrant that.
Yeah.
So
I think Greg Olsen did a good job explaining it during the game too, that, hey, he's like, okay, I guess technically, but it was awfully ticky-tack. I mean, he did everything but say,
right.
Hey, he did that. I wouldn't have called it. He came very close to. That's a bad call.
Well, somebody brought up the point yesterday on Twitter that the referees, officials yesterday are definitely trying to set the precedent that they're going to be, so focused on everything safety related. And I think, my thought was, if that's true, then you have to call it fairly. Do you know what I mean? There was plenty going on on the other side of the ball that wasn't being called. So if you're really about that, that's your light. Like if they had called Atlanta just as harshly as they called us, I wouldn't have been as upset. But they didn't. And my thing is they set the tone early in that game for what's going to be allowed and what isn't. You saw like Najee's helmet getting ripped off at one point. I mean, they almost took off his head, and there's no flag on that. And it's just that kind of stuff that your whole mantra is we're all about player safety, and then you watch them not be about player safety.
Well, you got to give the refs a break. He was only carrying the ball. Why would they watch him?
Right.
Let me ask you this. Not a question. Quick question. Do you feel that it was an ugly one yesterday?
It was the kind of win we wouldn't have.
The defense had to win the game.
We wouldn't have won this game last year. That's how I feel. I feel this is kind of the games that we would have lost last year.
I feel like the defense was a major contributor, but I feel like the offense was significantly improved over last year. I mean, we had 1 3-and-out yesterday for the whole game. I mean, that's not a place we lived in 2023.
8 of 17 on third down conversions. That's the best we've looked since Ben retired.
And Bob, Bob, you actually put it perfectly. I've been using this specific term. It was a different 18 points. That you put it so well yesterday. This is a different 18 points. We scored this last season. We're all grumbling. And Leanne, you're talking about all the big name and people in Pittsburgh. They're all talking about the same thing today. They're like, I felt good about the win yesterday. Yeah. The more I look at it, the better I feel about it because they could see Arthur Smith's influence in the offense and the things were working. But it's important to mention really quick before we close off on the refs thing that it wasn't just the calls that the refs were bad. It was literally everything. Their huddles were taking too long. They were getting numbers wrong. In between, when you guys couldn't see, that they were randomly they weren't and huddles talking to them. One would randomly walk off to the side. One would be talking like there was no cohesion going on with this refs unit. So it was so awful. So
yeah. I want to say one more thing about
the zombies going over the wall is what the fans were about to do.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing about Ray's point about the defense. I very much felt as I reflected on the game that, we had some big plays that, got overturned or the Pickens was like a 36-yard catch or something. Do you know what I mean? There was some other stuff that fell incomplete or fell short. I feel better about scoring 6 field goals than I would have if we'd scored 4 touchdowns on giant plays where we didn't sustain drives. Do you know what I mean? So if that big 36-yard catch had gone through and he'd scored a touchdown, if Najee broke one and ran for 60 yards, do you know what I mean? I felt better about our offense, honestly, having kicked some field goals than I would have if it had been very short drives with big plays that scored, because that speaks to their defense breaking down versus our offense being able to sustain something and win. I feel like you can work on your red zone offense. We can work with what we've got to build going forward.
Yeah, and just to answer the question about the worst call, the Pickens calls were bad. The Johnson call was bad. The worst call of the game was the TJ sack fumble that got taken away, and then they scored the touchdown.
Yeah.
I've seen all over social media where they're showing the play. Yes, TJ comes out of his stance, but he doesn't cross the ball, and the ball is snapped almost immediately.
Yeah.
So that was terrible, and the fact that it led to what could have been, it gave the Falcons the lead, the only touchdown of the day.
Right.
That was really bad, and I think it really upset TJ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you could see. I don't know that I've ever seen him that upset.
Guys.
Credit to Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier, that fumbled that first snap. After that, didn't seem to mess with him. That worried me for a second. I looked. I was like, oh no. And it was a guy, real first snap as a rookie in the NFL. Then he got his head back, and a lot of people were saying if you look at West Virginia film and you look at what Zach Frazier did, they're identical. Like this guy just plays football. And I enjoyed that. So if yesterday was an ugly win, I will take ugly all season long. I would like bigger and better, but I always said we're going to win by the strength of our defense. And I think they really enjoyed that we had to lean on them yesterday.
Yeah.
6 Rings said 6 field goals, not what you're looking for. Was time of possession better than last year? Do you think Wilson would have done any better?
Yeah. I think just before we answer this question, I just want to say one thing for the Patriots fans who invade our chat. Thank you. Thank you so much for yesterday. Whooping the Cincinnati Bengals on opening day, letting us have first place, at least for a week, all by ourselves. Can't shout them out enough. I mean, I love seeing it, especially handing them a home loss.
Yeah.
Great job, Patriots.
And this is a different Patriots. Right now, I have no reason to not like or to hate these Patriots. There is no Bill Belichick and there is no Tom Brady on these Patriots. So they have to re-earn their hate with me. So right now, have fun, Patriots, till you play us. Just enjoy.
Right.
Yeah. But that being said, I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but just to expand, that 8 of 17 on third downs, the sustained drives, we only went 3 and out once yesterday. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Every time the defense got to go to the sideline and rest. So the first drive of the game where Atlanta walked down the field but we stiffened and got that field goal. I'm not going to lie. I was a little, hey, this is a high-paid defense. What's going on? and then it started to materialize throughout the game. And honestly, yeah, when they scored the touchdown, they drove down, but that should have been negated. That was not a penalty on TJ.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, as you mentioned about 3 and outs, guys, what some people don't realize is when the offense goes 3 and out after so many times, what folks don't really realize is the big picture is it puts defense on the field so much. Yep. And again, come fourth quarter, they're gassed out. And how many times have we said this? Come on, defense, just one more stop, one more stop, one more stop.
And every game last year.
Yeah, yesterday to me, I mean, like you said, just a handful of 3 and outs. And the thing is,
I think it was
offense
right?
on the field. It keeps defense fresh.
One 3 and out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
which is great.
A lot of people were,
and I mean, I believe that's a building block right there for the offense. That's a building block right there. And again, I believe, Leanne, yes, 6 field goals by Boz, I understand, but sooner or later, it's going to turn to 6.
Well,
I would say give it time.
The only thing I would say about the offense is that 3 and out came at the worst possible time. I don't think I'm the only one who was, when they went 3 and out and handed the ball right back to Cousins with 3.5 minutes left, that thought, uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I actually will say I was on the opposite side of that. And it's because the defense showed me something I haven't seen, and I'll be serious, since Dick LeBeau. And that is when the defense gets punched in the mouth in the first quarter, and the rest of the game, we are fine. And I haven't seen that in a long time. And it happened. This defense got punched in the mouth, and then they got together and decided that they remembered who they were. So when it came around to that end and they turned it over, I'm like, this is what our season is built for an offense to struggle in these moments and for our defense to come through. If we can do this, I'll feel better about our season. I wasn't worried. Our defense had earned my trust again by that point, because I had said since the beginning, we have the highest paid defense in the NFL for a reason. And they weren't just dominant yesterday. They were having fun. And Ray, you were right. They were rested. And they haven't felt that since maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago? TJ going into a fourth quarter, not feeling gassed. So, I mean, that's a beautiful picture right there. And I think I think TJ's smiling while he hits some.
Yeah. And I thought it was poetic justice that TJ got the fumble recovery shortly on the next drive after he didn't get the strip sack. So that was nice to see. But then again, I was struck by, there were several times where, and especially right after the sack fumble, where TJ went to the sideline and was throwing a fit. But yeah, we gave up the touchdown a couple of plays later, but Herbig was on the field a lot. He didn't have any huge splash plays, but I really thought you didn't notice it too much when TJ was off the field, other than the camera showing, hey, he's on the sideline. There was still pressure. We still played defensively pretty strong. Montravius Adams broke through with a nice combined sack with Cam Hayward. The rotation was working. I don't like how much they didn't play Cam Hayward. They played him a lot, but there were several times, and I understand you want to get Adams on the field, but I saw Isaiah Loudermilk way too much. I mean, I want a rotation, but I don't want Loudermilk in it.
Well, Larry Ogunjobi had it wasn't a stat sheet game. He had a day. A lot of people were saying that it was a strength in that. But I'm curious about one thing. I've seen a lot of people say that it was TJ Watt that made Dante Jackson look good, and I disagree with that. I think Dante Jackson looked good yesterday.
I think Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott made Minka look good.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, and Minka hasn't had that in a while. Minka's had to make himself look good for a while. And Troy, I guarantee Troy Polamalu was watching this saying, there you go, because he knows what it's like, the difference between I have to do this myself and, these guys know what I need to work. And Minka played Minka yesterday, and it was.
And when I say Minka looked good, I don't mean that Minka lacked talent and needed other people to support him to do it. I just meant that he hasn't had that support from the secondary. Last season, we saw him constantly out of position, constantly having to go other places and do other things. And I think he was much freer yesterday to be able to do, what he called it, Minka ball, than he was last season.
Yeah, and on the Elliott interception, I recall Minka was right there. So if Elliott didn't catch it, what I was worried about, honestly, when he dove for it, I was like, oh man, don't tip it over Minka's head. Minka's got it.
Yeah.
But they were both right there, and it was a nice play by who, by the way, this is the Deshaun Elliott I was expecting. We didn't see it too much in the preseason, but this is a key addition at safety for us. I really like Deshaun Elliott. And I honestly, the best thing I can say about the cornerbacks, other than when we all held our breath when Joey Porter got hurt, was we didn't notice it too much. Dante Jackson, did he play a good game? Yeah, but let's face it, the pressure. Kirk Cousins was rusty. He was rushing. I mean, that helps your secondary, and bottom line is, if he'd had 5 seconds to throw, would it maybe been different? Yeah, it would have been, but you're not going to get 5 seconds to throw with the Steelers pass rush.
I'm
for
curious.
Both of those guys having receptions was huge.
It was. I'm curious for you guys really quick. Was there a concern that you had going into this game that you still don't feel better about? Because for me, I gotta say, I think all of my concerns are at least neutral, and nothing got worse to me. Nothing that I was concerned about was as bad as I thought. I know Bob feels differently about one specific area.
Yeah,
he still doesn't. Dan Moore did not impress him.
No, not at all.
The part I'm concerned about, Zach, would be the running game. It's the running game, and Najee had 20 carries for 70 yards. Could have been better, but
is that Najee? Whose fault is that?
Huh?
Whose fault is that?
Number 65.
I think certainly 65 is part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lane, because there were a few times I saw again that there were frustrating runs where Najee to throw off 2 guys before he could have a chance at it. And so everyone has their own opinions, but I'm a little surprised that running game is still a concern. Everyone can have their thing, but to me, I was happy with that running game.
Specifically with the running game, those toss plays and those stretch plays are not Najee Harris's bread and butter. You're putting him in a bad position when you're asking him to do that. I think he did okay. Jalen, we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think Jalen was on a pitch count. Zach brought that up. I think it was very revealing about how much confidence they had in Jalen's hamstring when Cordarrelle Patterson was getting the carries that you would normally see Jalen Warren get in the first half. There were a few plays, and Jalen had a little bit of burst here and there. I don't think we'll see that going forward. Najee isn't going to get 20 carries every game. I feel like the sweet spot is around 15, unless it's to close the game. I mean, if we're up 17-0, he might get 20 carries in the second half. But yeah, there were times with the running game where I was a little bit concerned. But I mean, you could see what it was. It was the left side of the line getting caved in. Project wasn't perfect. I thought he played a pretty good game at right tackle. Daniels, I thought, played a pretty good game, which, by the way, shout out to James Daniels for wearing the cap. I love to see that. I wish more players would wear it. I especially wish Pat Freiermuth would put it on.
Yes.
I'm almost shocked he doesn't.
Do you guys? How do you feel about Pat yesterday? Because he got involved more. I think that he barely had any games last year where he had 3 catches.
Yeah.
And he had 4 yesterday. It was only for like 27. But were you guys happy with what you saw to Pat?
I was really happy to see so much tight end involvement, like multiple tight end sets. And you know what I mean? I definitely that speaks more to Arthur Smith than Pat Freiermuth, actual contribution. I think where he was involved, he did fine. I think that I think it was an interesting game and how we didn't really get any of those depth receivers involved. And I think what we saw definitely spoke to the fact that Freiermuth is the second wide receiver on this team. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, it was definitely the George Pickens show, but I mean, Scotty Miller, Van Jefferson, I think Van Jefferson had 1 catch. Scotty Miller had none, I think. I mean, they were almost non-existent in the game. And so, I don't think anybody's stats on offense were like mind-blowingly explosive. Do you know what I mean? But I thought, back to Arthur Smith, I don't know what you guys think, but I felt like Smith was more innovative than what we've seen in Pittsburgh in a long, long time. I recognize that I'm like super excited because you're holding him up next to the Matt Canada comparison, and that probably isn't fair. You know what I mean? It's not like the Kyle Shanahan comparison or something, but I do feel like, we saw the start of something that could be really good,
Yeah. Here's I'm coming to a section right here, and Zach, Leanne, I'm going to see if I can ruffle Bob's feathers on this right here, okay?
Why are you ruffling people?
So here we go. Who gave up the touchdown for the Steelers? Who was it?
The refs.
Huh?
Yeah.
Refs.
I'd say the refs. I wouldn't blame it on a player.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't call the penalty on TJ, we have the ball. Bottom line is look, Kirk Cousins didn't move around. That's probably the only play, except for one towards the end of the game, that we saw him really move off his spot.
Yeah.
I mean, if a quarterback has time to start right and then come all the way back across the field to the left, somebody's going to be open. I mean, especially Kyle Pitts. You could see Beanie Bishop when Pitts snuck behind him, Beanie Bishop was playing up a little bit too close to the quarterback, and it kind of let Pitts get wide open. Do I love that Beanie Bishop did that? No. But am I going to sit there and say, hey, blame him? Because bottom line is, if we get the pressure and he doesn't have time to come all the way back to the left to find Pitts, then Beanie Bishop doesn't get burned. But when you're only 15 yards out, you don't get burned.
Yeah.
Okay.
That to me was defensive play calling.
And I was expecting to hear Beanie Bishop's name in a negative sense a lot more. So Beanie Bishop, huge win.
Yeah,
because
if that was his one big mistake yesterday, I mean, you can kind of live with that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, I don't know when he's presented with a more dynamic offense that he's going to be able to look as good as he did yesterday. Do you know what I mean? I think that Atlanta was a really nice, like, dipping your toe in the NFL pool for these players coming together for the first time. Do you know what I mean? I think it was a nice way for us to get, our feet under us, get some real practice against a real team. But I think Atlanta, I said it earlier, I think they have a much better defense than people have given them credit for. And I think that really spoke to how much better our offense played. The defense looked fantastic. Giving up a touchdown. And it feels
what was supposed to be an improved offense. I mean, but Kirk Cousins didn't play well. I mean, let's be honest. But there was a reason he didn't play well. It's because his line was getting caved in on him consistently.
Now, I will take nothing away from this defense at all, but I will predict something that by the end of this season, the Falcons will be in the bottom 10 of the NFL in offense. I don't believe this offense is nearly as good as everyone said it was. Look, again, take nothing away from our defense, but I legitimately think a lot of people really hyped up this offense because of a $180 million quarterback who was a lot rustier than they expected.
It's going to depend on how much better he really does. Like, was this just him being rusty? Was this just him being a little bit nervous? Do you know what I mean? Was this just this new offense with a new coordinator, all these things working out, new kinks? You know what I mean? Was that the issue for Atlanta yesterday? Or is there really like a longer term problem with Kirk Cousins? Like, I think it's way too soon to say that. Do you know what I mean? I would have expected him to have some struggles yesterday if he was our quarterback. Do you know what I mean? So,
and just going back real quick to the nobody had great offensive stats. I mean, Pickens got targeted 7 times. He caught 6 of them for 85 yards.
He was great. I'm not taking it away from anybody. I'm just saying that there wasn't like one person on offense that really like lit the world on fire. Do you know what I mean? I think Pickens was really solid. He was definitely the George Pickens show yesterday.
Right, and bear in mind, if he gets the catch for the 36 yards that they took away from him, he's 120 yards and 7 catches. But Pat is next up with 4 targets.
Yeah.
So half the targets went to Pickens and Freiermuth.
Oh, yeah.
And Pat caught all 4 of his balls. And I saw that it's going around on social media. Oh, look at the pass chart. It's the same as Kenny Pickett. All the Kenny Pickett people came out of the woods. Oh, look, they're throwing the same things. It's not the same sideline completions because Fields was rolling out and hitting Pat. He hit Michael Pruitt. He even hit Darnell Washington on a short 5-7 easy throw to the tight end to just either pick up close to the first down or grab the first down. Yeah. I thought I am trying to get into this. I thought Fields played exceptional. I mean, did he throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns? No, but he moved the team. He didn't turn the ball over. He was very protective with the ball, and I thought there was a throw that I only think Ben could have made, and Russell Wilson definitely couldn't have made it. The one that set up the field goal before the half, where he rolled left, stopped, planted, and Pickens kind of ran that fade out route where he sold it, going across the middle. The safety sucked up, and he cut back to the sideline. It was wide open. That was a laser. There's not very many guys in the NFL who can make that throw. Yeah. It was on the money, and I was really happy with how Justin Fields played. Could they have scored some touchdowns? Yes, but I think they will going forward. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting Russell Wilson back on the field. I'm good with Fields. Let's run this offense.
To me, he looked as good as what you could have asked for. Do you know what I mean? Given that he wasn't the person that took reps with the ones all week, that he was game prepping all week, as far as we know, because we were all told Russell Wilson was going to start. So to me, I felt like Fields came out there. He looked a little rusty, do you know what I mean, in the beginning. And then to me, it looked like he became this very calming presence on the field, where he kind of settled things down. I thought it was solid veteran leadership from a guy that has been kicked around, quite a bit by the media. And look, I'm not going to pretend like he was out there giving some Tom Brady performance yesterday, but by any stretch. But I thought, considering how much crap this guy's taken over the past 3 or years or whatever, I thought he came out and put together a really solid performance yesterday. It's clear to me that he knows he is fighting for his life in the league, and I feel like he's doing everything he can to say, hey, if not Pittsburgh, somebody needs me. I'm the future of somebody's team.
Yeah. I like Calvin Austin was a wonderful compliment to what it's what we needed him to do. I'm not expecting Calvin Austin to really contribute in the passing game. I knew what we needed him to do was just get us some returns that were not, I don't want him to return kickoffs all the time for touchdowns, but he consistently gave us better field position than I expected us to have. And as long as he just keeps that up in a little bit and we make sure our special teams aren't a liability, I was more impressed with that than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, I will say I want to see on special teams, just move it out of the end zone. I don't care. With this defense, I don't care if they start at 30. I mean, let's not get cute. I can see some things going maybe wrong. Don't give these return guys, when it's so close, a chance to bust the line. Our coverage was good yesterday, but the more I watched around the NFL, the more I thought, you know what? Just kick it out the back. Okay, so you start at the 30 instead of the 25 this year.
Yeah.
Big deal.
I agree with you. With our defense, I don't feel like that's the biggest issue. I'd rather do that than risk it.
So I'm curious, as we start to wrap it up a little bit, what is the biggest thing you guys are taking away from this opening win?
Say it again.
What's the biggest thing you were taking away that you learned about this team from this opening win?
The defense?
Either way.
Yeah, a whole team.
Well, on the defensive side, I believe TJ Watt, he is playing with a chip on his shoulder still, and rightfully so. And again, the way he got in that official's face says a whole lot right there. And I believe that it may have fired up the defense. I love that a whole lot. I hope sometimes that, maybe he doesn't feel like, he can do it every time. But the thing is, it's week one. So again, he's wrapped up in his emotions, rightfully so. I love that. The defense is intense, led by the captain, TJ Watt. I love that. That's my takeaway from it.
More TJ impressed, right? Bob, what did you take away from this game? Or what did you learn most?
I love that from an offensive standpoint that we only threw the ball 22 times and yet it still seemed effective with plays taken away. I think the sweet spot for Fields is to play him like they played Ben when he first started. 25, 30 throws max, is probably going to be a very good result for us. You start having him throw the ball more than 30 times, it might get a little dicey as far as how well we do. Personally, the fact that half the targets he threw went to Pickens and Freiermuth made me extremely happy because I don't feel like they forced the ball to Pickens and Freiermuth. Not to mention the fact that Underdog Fantasy, not a sponsor, but you could be. I got to win a little bit of money by taking the over on Pat 23 yards and Pickens 53 yards. I think that's going to happen a lot this year. Hopefully they'll continue to keep it low. But defensively, I think we played pretty well. I don't think that was the best game we could have played, but I thought it was a very good game, and I thought the pressure was exceptional. The offense, it's going to get better. It's going to get better every week. And, let's be honest, Atlanta did a really good job shutting down Fields' run. Even he ran it 14 times for 57 yards. Normally, he runs the ball 14 times. He's putting up 150 yards.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So, Leanne, what are you walking away with?
I think it's easy to say, like, going into this season, this narrative that all the Steelers need to win is their defense. Do you know what I mean? And then this quarterback just has to be able to come in and game manage a little bit, put some points on the board. And I think we definitely saw that yesterday, but I think it was, at least from my perspective, it was better than I anticipated. You know what I mean? I expected the defense. I was expecting that Cleveland Browns game where we had 2 defensive touchdowns, and not that we would necessarily get 2 defensive touchdowns, but it would be that smothering, kind of coverage from our defense and then almost non-existent from our offense. And that wasn't the case. I was pleasantly surprised with how much better than offense played than I expected them to. I also think that the guys that you think were going to come in with chips on their shoulders came in with chips on their shoulders, and you love to see it. I think Arthur Smith came into Atlanta, wanting to prove something. I think he looked like he did back with the Titans, like more innovative. I thought he looked creative. I know that we have a very low bar in Pittsburgh, but regardless, I still thought he had the Steelers moving in the right direction. I think Najee Harris looked like he is, an axe to grind with the franchise. I realize he didn't pick up a ton of yards yesterday, but you saw him, doing everything he could to power through those runs. I think Cameron Hayward looked like a guy who wanted to give the middle finger to all the fans that talked crap about him, named Bob Quinn, and showed that he still has gas in his tank. I thought all these guys, TJ Watt, like, Ray said, not winning DPOY last year. I think he came in with that too. So I felt like even like Elliott and Jackson, you know what I mean, who really kind of didn't have the belief of their old fan bases. I think they came in to show, hey, we can do this. And you just saw a team that was like so cohesive for week 1. The Steelers usually, I always think we kind of start off slow and really struggle week 1. So if this was our start off slow and struggle, then, fingers crossed that it's just going to get better and better, especially considering how tough the end of this season is going to be.
Now, before we leave, I do have some rapid fire questions for you, all of you.
Okay.
It's a 1-letter response. Are you ready for this?
1 letter?
One word.
Yep.
1 word? What word?
Hey, it's report card time. I'm going.
We're grading. We're grading. Okay, I was
That's right. It's
confused.
report card time. Okay.
I was confused.
Cornerbacks A through F. A through F. Leanne, what do you think?
B-.
Bob.
C.
Zach.
B.
B. Okay.
Yep. B.
Running backs. Leanne.
B.
B. Bob.
B-.
Huh?
B-.
B-. Okay. Zach.
A-.
B-.
A-. A-.
A-.
Okay.
A-
on that.
Wide
Let
receivers.
my Najee bias take
Leanne.
over.
If by wide receivers you mean George Pickens, and I give him a solid A-. I thought he looked great. I thought we even saw a little blocking from him. Sorry, that was more than 1 letter.
We did.
Bob.
I would give our receiver, let's get it right, as far as the wideouts, an A. I may even go A+ because he really, to be the focus really played a good game.
Yeah.
Zach?
Yep. Yeah, and that's an amazing average considering that the other wide receivers did nothing. So Pickens affects that curve.
Offensive line. Leanne.
B-.
Bob.
I will tell you this. I mean, if I'm grading number 65, I give him a D-. The rest of the line, I give a C+. So we'll say a C.
Zach?
Well, B+.
B+, okay.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive what I saw.
Especially considering two of those guys had never played a professional game before.
Yeah.
Defensive line. Leanne.
A. They did well. Much impressed.
I agree. It was an A. You didn't even notice when they were switching players in or out, except for there was a couple times Loudermilk was in the game where there Bijan Robinson busted, but they held it mostly in check. I solid A from them.
Okay. Zach.
Clean sweep. That is an A across the board.
A across the board, okay.
Well deserved too. Well deserved.
The secondary.
We already talked about the secondary.
Leanne.
B+.
B+?
Really? Maybe even no. You know what? Let's give him an A. I forgot about the 2 interceptions.
You said A?
Yeah.
A, okay.
Yeah, I'll go B+ only because the touchdown. Oh, I forgot Bob first.
Yeah, well, I mean, we graded the cornerbacks a C. So I don't understand why we would separate the quarterbacks from the secondary.
No. Quarterbacks for this beginning.
Oh, quarterback. I heard cornerback. So I would change my I'll change my C to a B- for Justin Fields. Secondary, I'd say a solid B.
B,
overall.
Okay. Zach?
Secondary B+. I would have done the
okay.
A, but the touchdown takes it away.
Yeah.
Special teams. Leanne.
It's so hard because I really believe, like with Boz and Cam Johnston's punts before he got hurt, you were at like an A++++++++. But Miles Killebrew sort of running into him and injuring him, that was a bonehead thing. I mean, I know it was a mistake or an accident or whatever. Let's stick with an A. I mean, Boz, I mean, what can you say?
Bob?
Okay, well, Killebrew didn't really run into him. I mean, he didn't even really block him into him. He just happened to be the guy standing closest to it. So, I mean, because of Boz, it's an A+. Justin was good before he got hurt. I thought Boz's punt was incredibly clutch. I mean, was it the best punt ever? No, but it wasn't a 25-foot yard check. Yeah, it's better than Presley Harvin for sure. So yeah, I go A+. Strictly on Boz. I thought the coverage was okay, by the way.
Zach?
A+, absolutely. Considering Boz is the first kicker in Steelers history to make 3 over 50 in a game, yeah, that's impressive.
And the last one, coaching.
Oh.
Leanne?
I'm going to say a B. You know what? I think the defense made adjustments after that touchdown that were critical. Do you know what I mean? Which is not something we've always seen in the past. I think Arthur Smith was much more innovative and creative than he has been in the past. I feel like some of what we saw shows a little bit of a relinquishment of control from Tomlin. And so all things considered, B.
Bob?
C- bordering on a D. The fourth down play is, I don't understand it. You could see those guys were confused. You got to call a timeout if you're going to rush that to the line. They made the point in the broadcast. It was disjointed. It was discombobulated. I thought that was curious. Starting Dan Moore automatically drops you to an F to start the game. They raised up to a C-, D+. I mean, there was a couple other, little things here and there. Overall, it wasn't a horribly coached game. I think the offense opened it up as they went. So, yeah, I mean, just strictly for Dan Moore and starting at an F, it's raised up to a C-. And I thought that fourth down play really could have cost us and it didn't make sense. It wasn't consistent with how they were playing the game. They took the points on every drive except that one. And like I said before, I really got nervous when they did that because that is exactly how a Tomlin loss happens.
Zach?
Well, first off, let's say I was and anyone about that specific field goal because in my preview, I said that if Justin Fields started, we were going to win 21-10. So that took away my perfect guess. So I was really upset about that. But I'm going to give coaching a B-. And I'm going to say something here that I'm going to stick through the entire season. The Arthur Smith effect is already starting to kind of counterbalance the Mike Tomlin effect. I still saw the Mike Tomlin effect yesterday, but I saw the Arthur Smith impact more. So that's why it's a B-, because there were still a couple of calls I'm like, that's a Mike Tomlin call. But there were other calls where I'm like, hey, like not running the George Pickens play again. That really bad, weird, I'm going to flop like a fish in the air thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, and you just tore up the paper and threw it away. Matt Canada would have run that 4 more times afterwards. So B- because we're learning.
Yeah, but he would have had Calvin Austin running it.
Right.
Yeah.
So but I like that, Ray. That was fun. So for everyone who joined the Pats Rings fans and all that, we really appreciate everybody who joins us. We're looking forward to the Broncos, which it might not be the kind of revenge game that we were talking about. This might just be a Justin Fields goes to Denver, and that should be how it is. So do you guys have any closing remarks?
Yeah, this is going to be a great test for the offense. I know we'll talk about it more on Friday because Denver's defense played pretty well yesterday, but here's the matchup that I really want to see. Patrick Surtain versus George Pickens. That is going to be box office right there. And who wins that matchup? Bo Nix is terrible. He looked terrible yesterday. I think the defense will make sure that we don't lose it. But I want to, if the offense can put up a touchdown or two and get 5 or 6 scoring drives like they did yesterday, that means that Pickens probably won that matchup, and that's really going to announce to the rest of the NFL that hey, this is for real this year with Pickens and whoever the quarterback's going to be.
As an Alabama fan, we spent a lot of time going up against good old Bo Picks, and so I'm looking forward to meeting him again in Denver. I heard Mark Cavoli say today that Russell Wilson was a little salty after yesterday's win, that he was kind of walking around with a little bit of a scowl on his face, which I thought was interesting. Apparently wasn't very happy that he didn't get to play and then that they were successful without him. So it'll be very interesting to us talk later this week when we hopefully have a better idea of who we're going to see at quarterback. If you made it this far, we greatly appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Send it to a buddy. Shoot us a message. You've got all our social media handles. You can find our show's Twitter page, Instagram page, and shoot us a message and watch for our daily TikToks.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask us a question on social media. We will respond.
Look, other hand. Which way am I going? That way. It's always backwards.
Remember, you can read all of Leanne's articles on Steeler Nation. You can read me and Bob's on Total Apex.
Yep.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you. We will see you on Friday. We'll see you on Friday. Yeah.
Friday.